Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Ryan Fontenot here again with the 1 Million Cent podcast powered by R.A.G.E Ministries, where together we are reaching a generation endangered. I cannot wait to hear what my friend has to say on this episode. He is a man on mission. He is a man that is making it happen in Tennessee. And so today I have my good friend, Sam Midgett, on here with me. Sam, how are you, my brother?
Ryan, dude, I'm going great, man. I'm just pumped to get to spend some time with you, hang, talk. It's going to be good.
Hey, well, I know that, man, you're going to spit some truth. It is always fun. Sam, myself, and many other youth leaders get on a Zoom call about once a month. I don't know how I got invited into this, man, but I'm excited to be there. And we have some fun. And so I know you're going to enjoy hearing from Sam. Sam, why don't we just start off real quick before we jump into our few rapid fire questions. Tell us where you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm at First Baptist Concord, Knoxville, Tennessee. I've been here about 4 years. And, I got here about 10 months before COVID hit. And so, man, it's been a roller coaster. It's been a lot of fun. I work with middle school, high school students, and I've been doing that for a while, man. And I just love it. Love it.
Man, well, I know you do a great job. Everybody I know brags on you and the work that God is doing in you and through you. So, and thanks for your investment in the next generation. And so let's jump into some rapid fire questions, man. Then none of these are really spiritual, but they are maybe fun, So, number one, man, I got to know, are you a coffee person or are you more of an energy drink guy?
Oh, that one's easy, man. I mean, I'm on like cup number 5 right here for the day. Had to get this before we settled in. Coffee every day.
There you go. Do you have a are you a coffee snob, or are you kind of just get me caffeine delivery?
I just need that caffeine delivery. As long as it's not bad, we're good to go.
There you go. I like that. All right. Number two. Speaking of energy, are you kind of a morning, midday, or night guy? Where are you most productive?
I'm built for student ministry. I'm a night owl. I hate the mornings. I get very, very little accomplished before noon. Just try to make it.
Yes, I just showed up. I remember when I was a full-time student pastor, you'd be out late at a game or out late at an event or whatever. And then, the next morning, everybody's like, why are you just now coming in at 10 a.m.? I was like, because I was up till 1 a.m.
Yes.
So it's a real thing. Hey, so when you travel, do you prefer, are you a driving guy or are you a flying guy?
Oh, man, I'll always go for the fly. Now, here's the deal, though. I got my wife, got 2 kids. If we're going family, we're driving. I'm cheap. As cheap as they come, all right? But if it's just me, I'll swing for the flight.
I got you. I like that, man. Well, when you do travel, if you had your preference, would you be mountains or beach?
So I live in Knoxville, base of the Smoky Mountains. We got all the mountains we can take. So I'm always going for the beach on the vacay.
There you go, man. Yeah, people don't know. He lives in the mountains, but he always says beach camp every summer. All right, dude. Well, holiday seasons have just come around and stuff. Are you kind of a pie guy? Or are you a cake guy? What's your flavor?
I go for the pie. I'm not big on the frosting and the overly sweet stuff, so I'm pie all the way.
Okay. Do you have a favorite pie?
Oh, yeah. Pumpkin pie.
Oh, come on. There you go.
I'm one of those people.
I like it. I used to think pumpkin pie was disgusting, and now I love it, man. I can't wait to eat
so good.
Oh, that's good.
So
that's
good.
All right, we'll get a little more spiritual here. Are you Old Testament or New Testament guy?
Man, I feel like I spend most of my time teaching from the New Testament. With students, it's kind of the easier, especially if you're talking with unbelievers. So I spend a lot of New Testament time.
I love it, man. I love it. I had one guy on here. He's like, I don't know. I was like, well, if we looked at your sermons, where would you preach?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, speaking of the New Testament, when it comes to the 4 Gospels, they're all a little bit different. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Which one would be your go-to guy?
I'd go Luke. I think I like it's really the compilation of research and all these things coming together. And so, man, I like the way Luke pulls it all out and spells it all out.
Okay.
It works with my brain.
Hey, I love it. I love it. I like to hear that. I'm pretty sure that we could develop a personality test, which gospel you like the most.
For sure.
And now I've got one more question for you, man, then we'll jump into some real stuff. But I don't want you to answer it. I just want you to think about it for a minute. And then we'll come back all the way at the end and you can share with me. Is Sam a dog guy or a cat guy? Don't answer.
Oh, I got an answer.
I Everybody has an answer in this one, so I can't wait to see hear which you are and why. So you told us, Sam, man, you're a student pastor. You oversee high school and junior high ministry. Is that correct?
Right. That's right.
Okay, cool. Now, do you have a primary focus on one, or are they all together still, or how does that look like for you guys?
Well, we are kind of split out, but we have a middle school pastor and a high school pastor, and we all kind of work in tandem together. So there's a lot of things that we do that are specific, but a lot of things that we try to do together as a team.
Nice. Yeah, because I know as we've talked, you said, hey, we do a middle school summer camp and we do a high school summer camp. Right. Just to start out here, what is kind of the benefits? Not everybody's necessarily at a size that they can do that, but if you can, what have you seen as some of the pros for being able to separate those ages?
Yeah, well, I think, for high school students, there's a lot of pros right out the gate. I think high schoolers always kind of want to be together with other high schoolers.
Yeah.
It's easy when you're removed from their age to look at them and think, we all are all kind of similar. But man, when you're in high school, you feel a world of difference. And so they don't want to be. Anytime they can be removed out of that middle school environment, they're all for that. It's sometimes tricky because middle schoolers love a crowd. So you're taking some bodies out of the mix and the equation for them. But I just love that, being able to be specific. I mean, we're going to go at middle school camp, we're going to go hard for evangelism. And high school, we're going to go hard for evangelism as well. But we also have a little bit more expectation of, hey, we can go a little further, a little deeper here as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, man. And I think sometimes, it's easy to lump, they're teenagers all in one
Right.
glob, and there is certainly some pros to being together, at times during the year, but man, being able to split apart, it's kind of like genders as well, split up guys and girls, I wouldn't do that all the time, but man, having that time apart is really cool because you can address things that may be specific for them. Now, how did you get to where you are? On this podcast, we'll have youth pastors listening. Some may be brand new in youth ministry. We'll have teenagers that are listening who may feel this call to ministry in their life, and they see someone like you, you're a youth pastor, and man, you're leading this ministry that is thriving. God is using greatly, and they're wondering, man, how do I get there? Tell us kind of your journey, man. How did you get to where you are in ministry and life?
Yeah, absolutely. So, man, Ron, I grew up in church, was always around church. We were the family that was at church anytime the doors were open. But, I didn't really ministry was never something that was on my mind for most of my time growing up. I was a little bit shy as a kid. I mean, we haven't thrown this out there on the podcast. My last name's Midgett. All right. And so when you're in middle school, when you're freshman in high school, that's your last name. You're like, no, I don't want any more attention than I already have. So
I bet you have scars few of us know about, man.
I'm just, the counseling bill just keeps getting bigger. To me, ministry was something in front of people, and I had no desire to be in front of people. So when I'm 15, I went to a camp, a high school beach camp, and I was there. I was hanging out with the guy who was in high school that was doing video for the camp, and he kind of took me under his wing and asked me if I wanted to help out with that. And so I got back and I spent the whole weekend at the church editing the camp video. And that was my first step into any type of ministry. And fast forward about a year and, I really feel like God's calling me into this. So I started working at my church when I was in high school, doing video, sound, lights, all those types of things, thinking I never want to be in front of people. But man, just, through college and a lot of things that transpired there, God really did some work in my heart. And so, I graduated from college, and man, I've been serving in student ministries along the way, but all behind the scenes type stuff. And it wasn't until I got to college that I kind of got to step more in front of people, do some things like that. And man, I've always had a heart for students. And for that was the time in my life when God did the most work in my life. When I saw him really move, when he called me to ministry, when I saw him do a lot of things in the lives of so many of my friends. And so I come back to that over and over again. And so, yeah, from there, I got the chance to serve at a couple different churches and do those types of things. But man, it always goes back to me of that experience of what God did in my life and wanting to see that replicated in students' lives. As a matter of fact, after a while, I got the opportunity to go back and be the student pastor at the church I grew up in. And it was incredibly fulfilling because here's this church and this ministry that invested in me. I got to preach in the room that I got called to ministry in. And that was really cool. It also was in a lot worse shape than when I was in high school.
Oh my goodness, dude, that's awesome. Man, I love that story because I think that'll resonate with a lot of people who don't feel like they think, well, I don't have the personality to be a youth pastor, or man, I don't have this outgoing whatever. And I love that you're like, hey man, I was just behind the scenes. I was just basically serving off of the stage, and that was good with me. And God then, took you to where you are right now. But I think there's a lot of teenagers, man, who are like, they feel this pull, maybe this desire to serve, but they're like, well, I don't preach or I don't sing, so I don't have anything to do. Well, no, run a camera, run lyrics,
Right.
open up the door, and you never know what God's going to do. So dude, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
one of the things you mentioned was, man, just your love for students. You have a passion for this next generation. It's obvious in what you do. I just don't believe you. You at least don't stay in student ministry long if there's not a love for students and teenagers coming to Jesus. So tell me
Absolutely.
this: why do you think that next generation, man? Why is it so important, and why does that matter to you so much?
Well, for me, so I show up in high school and to our student ministry, and the town I'm in, there's two main high schools. There's the old high, the school I went to, and then there was Ryder High School. And man, I came from a church with a large student ministry, and I was the only dude in my whole high school that went to our church. I just didn't have a lot of Christian friends at school. It was just the makeup of the town. There was a guy though that went to Ryder, the other high school, and was in our student ministry. I don't know, man. He just took notice of that. He saw it, or I don't know if our youth pastor just told him to do something, but he's a junior. I'm a freshman, and man, he just kind of reached out to me. He started inviting me to stuff. He'd take me to dinner on his way to church on Wednesday night. He'd do stuff like that, and man, it in many ways, so much of my spiritual growth in high school, obviously came from a church, my youth pastor, and all those people. But I would say Brent, my buddy, probably did more than anybody else single-handedly for my spiritual growth and my walk with the Lord. And so, man, I see that experience led me to see like, hey, man, not only do teenagers they're sitting in this incredible opportunity and stage of life where they're willing to make bold choices, make big decisions, do things for the Lord, but then they've got the opportunity to actually go out and do it. And, you know, as I think about what I hope I see in the students of our student ministry, I hope it's not so much me. I hope they see a bunch of Brents and see that kind of ministry, like that student on student ministry. I love that. I love that on a Wednesday night, a kid can walk into your service and have zero interest in the Lord and walk out of there at the end of the night with a completely changed person. You don't see that with adults. It takes me 20 minutes to pick out what I'm going to watch on Netflix, so we're just so much slower. And I love that life change that happens in students' lives.
That's awesome, man. I love, man, just that picture of a junior in high school reaching out to you. See, you're a freshman in high school,
Mhm.
and I mean that picture right there. With if you're watching this and listening, hey, if somebody's impacted your life and you're watching this, where you can drop a comment, let us know who that is, because I'm telling you, you never know what your encouragement, maybe a year later or 10 years later, 20 years later, would be for that person who's like, oh man, I did make a difference. And think about this: one guy poured into you, and that reaching out made a difference in your life. And here you are right now, man. And that fruit that seed that he sowed, man, is now producing fruit 100. I think the Bible talks about this 30, 60, 100 fold.
Right.
So that's pretty awesome, man. Well, as a teenager, yeah, I know a lot of teens. who are like, man, I wish I could do what Brent did. I wish I could be like that. Or I know I should tell my friend about Jesus or invite him to church, but they don't. Why do you think so many teens maybe feel paralyzed or maybe cautious to invite someone to church, to tell someone about Jesus? They know they should, but they're not. Have you kind of maybe found some reasons that teens have shared with you as to why they aren't actively sharing their faith?
Yeah. I think it's something you see not just with students, but you see it with adults too. So it's like everybody feels this pressure. But man, I kind of sometimes go back to that story in Luke 7 where Jesus, he goes over to the Pharisee's house to eat dinner. And while he's there, the woman comes in and she's weeping and she cries on his feet. And she washes his feet with her hair, and then pours perfume on his feet. And the Pharisees are almost, shocked at this. And basically what Jesus tells them is like, hey, here's a woman who understands her sin and understands how much she's been forgiven. And those who've been forgiven a lot, love a lot. And those who feel like they've been forgiven little, love little. And I think we all would say that, we're followers of Jesus. We want to do what God's called us to do, what Jesus has told us to do, the Great Commission, all these things. But I think what the thing is, when you get, hit with, hey, this is what Jesus has done for me, that's when you're motivated to share that. And I think, I mean, listen, my testimony, Ron, I said earlier, is I grew up in church and I got saved when I was 10 years old. And so, the level of the way a lost person at 10 life looks and the way a very moral person's life looks at 10, it's almost the same. You're 10 years old. So I didn't have that like crazy experience where, hey, I was 40 years old and lived a totally sinful, worldly life for 40 years and get radically saved. So it's not baked into my story that I have a deep understanding of my sin and my salvation. And so, man, I've got to personally constantly remind myself of who I really am and what sin really looks like and what grace really looks like. And then that's what motivates me, I think. And I think sometimes, man, in an effort to draw and get the net as wide as we can, we gloss over that sometimes. But I think if we'd remind ourselves and for us as student pastors, remind students of what it really means to be saved and what God's really saving us from and how much we needed that salvation, man, it would motivate us, because it's awkward. It's uncomfortable. I don't like to do it, if I'm honest. I mean, that's my calling in life, and I don't enjoy just going up and creating awkward conversations with people, but it's worth it when I understand what's been done for me.
Yeah, man, because when you see yourself, I think a lot of times you can see yourself in others, right? And you're like, man, I remember how lost I was, and now I know there is hope for this person. And that's so good, man. Just reminding ourselves, was it Spurgeon who said, preach the gospel to yourself every day or something like that? It's like,
Yeah,
hey,
absolutely.
we have to do that, and that motivation. That's good. Well, out of that, then, as maybe adults and students are listening to this or watching this, and they're thinking, well, okay, well, what's one thing, man, I could do today that would help me move that needle in my life, that would help me take that step of faith in my life? Is there one thing? I know obviously you gave a great one of, hey, remembering where you are, but maybe what's a practical step that someone could do to start a conversation or go for that invite or whatever? If someone's listening and they're saying, hey Sam, man, I want to tell my friend Ryan about Jesus. What's one thing I could do to start taking a step toward that?
Yeah, I think a couple things. One, I know this is so cliche, but you need to pray about it, and you got to pray for the opportunity. It's a great discussion about what does prayer really do, because God is God, and He's making decisions in and of Himself. But one of the things it does that we know is it puts our heart in tune with the Lord. And you pray for that person, you're looking for the opportunities with that person. You pray for that person, you're looking for the moments in the conversation that you can turn that conversation. I'm all for, building relationships with lost people and trying to, use those relationships. But I think the difficulty we can find ourselves in is if we say, hey, I'm going to build a relationship with somebody in the hopes that someday I'm going to be able to share the gospel. We have the potential to get on this treadmill where we're just in this relationship, and the longer you're in it, it's almost harder to get off and begin that spiritual conversation. So if you've got somebody in your life that you feel like, hey, this is an opportunity, there's somebody here that maybe God's placed in my life, or I know they need to hear the gospel, I want to share the gospel with them, man, I'd encourage you, pray for them early and look for the opportunities early. Because I've got people in my life, I think my next door neighbor being one of them, that I've spent 4 years developing a relationship with. And now it's like we're so far into it, it's almost more awkward now when I've had spiritual conversations with him, because we've gotten so far down the line, and it's like, well, why are you just bringing this up now? So, man, prayer and looking for those opportunities very early in relationships.
That's good. That's good. I love that, man. And I think, again, that's so true, is pray and look, pray and look. And by the way, if you're watching this and you're looking for some guided prayers, we have an actual PDF book called 7 Go Tell Prayers that you can download. We'll put the link in the show notes, and you can just list it. It's 7 prayers. You can pray one of these a day. And what it does is it cultivates this heart of evangelism. I do believe prayer is where it starts. So thanks for that, man. So Sam, how long have you been in student ministry now?
Man, sorry, I got to do some math here. I've been in student ministry about 22 years.
Okay, cool. 22 years. So 2 decades, man. My guess is somewhere along the way, man, you've had a story of a student who, well, maybe the best way I know to say it is they got it, and they took that step, they made that invite, they had that conversation, whatever, and you got to see God at work in their life. And for me as a dad, man, there's one thing about experiencing something, but when you see your kids experience something, you're like, oh, it's just more incredible, right? So when you see one of your students get it, you leading someone to Jesus is amazing. But when you see one of your students lead someone to Jesus, or they invite a friend who gets saved, man, you're like, that's incredible. I think those stories are inspirational. Could you just take a couple minutes and maybe share one of those stories from your ministry?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll Ryan, man, I mean, there's a lot of those stories I could tell. I wish there were more, but there was a girl when we were in this church in North Texas. She started coming to our student ministry. She was in middle school, and I was the middle school pastor at the time. And we ran about 100 kids in middle school, which is a good size student ministry. But this girl's name was Ainsley, and she just decided, grew up in and around church, kind of a similar story to mine, even a little bit. Heard the gospel, was a believer, but it just was just kind of there for a lot of ways. And when she's in 7th grade, it just was like a switch got flipped. And she just decided, hey, I'm going to get serious about this. I'm either going to get in or get out, basically. And she got serious about her faith. And so she started bringing some friends. And what she would do, Wednesday night, she'd invite 1 or 2 of her friends over to her house. They'd order pizza. They'd all hop in the Suburban, and her parents would take them to church. And this went on for, a couple months. And it just kind of grew and grew and grew until all of a sudden they didn't all fit in the Suburban. So her boyfriend played baseball for like a travel league, and they had a van. And so they got the baseball van, 15-passenger van, started bringing them all on Wednesday nights. And that continued to grow. And she continued to invite and bring people. And they got to where they were bringing 3 15-passenger vans. And man, the reason I said the size of our student ministry earlier is it got to the point our student ministry went from like 100 to about 175, but she was bringing about 60 of those 75. I mean, it was a one person. And, it was an incredible moment for me as a student pastor to realize, hey, I'm not nearly as big a deal in this thing as I think I am. And 2, much more than that, it was a moment for me to say, like, hey, this is what it's really supposed to look like. Here's a 7th, and then by this time she's in 8th grade girl who got serious about her faith, and she's changing her whole school. I mean, she's bringing 60 friends. She went to a school of about 300 people. So she's changed her whole school, her whole community. And she just did that because she was just obedient. And she just decided, listen, I'm either going to go all in or why am I here? Am I going to go all in or am I not? And so she just went all in, and man, what God did through her and how, a community and a school gets changed is just incredible. And it wasn't because of some church staff. It wasn't because of some church program. It didn't have anything to do with us. It was completely her and her just being obedient.
Man, that's incredible. And it just reminds me of the power. That's why we train one, right? Because what one person can do what no one else can do. And man, that's really the heart for those of you, again, that are tuned in behind our 1 million cents campaign. It's to train 1 million teens to share the gospel, because we know this, that the best way to reach the next generation is to equip the next generation. And who knows who's the next Ainsley out there who is going to catch fire for Jesus through the power of the Holy Spirit and just start saying, I'm going to be obedient. I'm going to invite. And man, thank you for sharing that encouraging story. Man, it gets me fired up. I feel like, man, I got to go buy a vape.
Yeah.
So I love it. I love it, man. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Sam, before we jump off here, man, people may want to connect with you. Maybe something you said resonated with them and they'd like to learn a little bit more. How can people connect with you on social media or whatever like that, man?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on Instagram at Sam Midgett. I'm also one of the 3 people left on Twitter at Sam Midgett. So both of those are great places to find me. Man, I'd love to connect with you.
Well, before we jump off here, man, let's bring it full circle. I know everyone's been waiting to know, man. I've been waiting to know. Is Sam, is he a dog guy or a cat guy? Go ahead, man. Let us know.
Okay, so I live in a house with 2 cats. All right, Ryan, 2 cats. One is predates me in the relationship with my wife, which we've been married 15 years. So that cat's fucking along, golly. The other one belongs to my 2 girl kids, who they
Okay.
So man, I live in a house with 6 people and I'm the only male.
My goodness, man. So okay. I'm gonna give you a chance here. Are you a cat guy by association?
Totally by default. Default.
Okay.
None of these animals are being replaced. I'll put it to you that way.
That's awesome, man. Well, Sam, man, thank you for what you're doing, bro. Thanks for your friendship, your encouragement in ministry. Man, I love seeing and hear what God is doing. Look forward to us connecting sometime. I know we've tried to make some stuff happen and dates just haven't lined out. We'll make that happen.
We're going to make it happen.
We're going to make it happen. Thanks for taking time to be on here. And hey, thank you for tuning in. I hope you've been encouraged and I hope you'll share this with somebody. Don't forget to subscribe, share it out. It helps us out. And if you enjoy what you're getting here, make sure and leave a review or a rating so that others will know as well. Until next time, don't forget this. Today is a great day to tell someone about Jesus. Let's go.